Bonjour. Real pleasure to see you all here. Looking forward to a great day of discussions and reflections with you all. So as Pearl mentioned, we started this work, or we had a precursor conference in 2013. It was definitely a very different environment. For those of you who were there, and several of us were there, it didn't feel like a secret meeting. We weren't tweeting about it for sure. And we were getting together with labor folks and Indigenous leaders and feminist group leaders and NGOs and all kinds of poverty groups to kind of share our stories. And we had the pleasure of having Maina Chiai with us for the whole day, who was the special rapporteur for the Right to Freedom of Assembly and Association at the time, and his jaw was just on the floor the whole day. He could not believe what he was hearing, because it was like, in Canada? How is this possible, right? So for us, CCIC, as an international development organization, we've been working on these issues overseas for a long time, right? Talking and conceptualizing with others around how do we support civil society in developing countries to play the role that they're meant to be playing. And we're convinced that a healthy, vibrant civil society is an essential ingredient for development and for democracy and for peace and for progress. So we've been reflecting on this and putting in practice, testing things on the ground, working in solidarity with civil society groups to create an enabling environment for them to do what they need to do, which spans a wide range of activities, from implementing social development projects and delivering services, all the way to advocating, being a watchdog, holding governments to account, and a whole range of activities in between. So we've been honing those skills and also that analytical framework with which to understand what an enabling environment means. And I want to point out our colleague Nick, who you'll be hearing in a little bit, works with ICNL, the International Civil Liberties. Sorry, got them all. Acronyms. We're big on acronyms. The International Development Community. We stop asking what they mean after a while. So that is one of many organizations, including one named Civicus, which is a global international network that I'm very proud and honored to be a board member of, and also the CSO Partnership for Development Effectiveness, CPDE, which is another global network, very southern-led of civil society groups who have been working very hard to create this, build this analytical framework with which we then support and work with our partners in the South. So for us, having been involved in all that work for the better part of a decade now, it was so interesting during the last decade here in Canada to turn our attention and kind of go, this is really useful maybe to help us understand what's happening here and where there's a slippery slope for our rights and freedoms to be voted or not, holding a clear concept of what we need as civil society to be able to play our role and what is off bounds if it starts eroding. So it's a real pleasure for me to have so many people talking about the enabling environment now, where I think 3 or 4 years ago it wasn't a concept that we were using very often. I just spent last week in Berlin with the group, the CSO Partnership for Development Effectiveness, that kind of fathered this notion and helped give it shape and inserted it into a whole bunch of international dialogue processes at the UN and elsewhere. So really delighted, and I was thinking while I was there that we were going to have this day here, and how excited I am that we're able to use that common framework to talk about what's still happening overseas, to talk about what's happened and what's happening in Canada, to give us a reference point of where we need to come back to, and I think to resonate or to mirror what Pearl was saying. We saw a backtracking in a whole bunch of rights and sort of that implicit social contract that we had with government about what our role is and how we related to government, and we're not back to where the bar hasn't gone back to its baseline level yet. And so we're convinced that using this framework, where we're talking about the different pillars that are essential, the conditions that have to exist for civil society to be able to contribute to healthy, vibrant societies, we're not there yet. So the funding piece, of course, which often people say, oh, there go the NGOs again talking about money, but funding is really important. And we did see a very important shift in our relationship with government as a sector over the last decade, where that understanding that governments would support civil society groups, even if at times they would be criticized by those groups. That was really broken, and we haven't kind of stuck it back together yet or found a new understanding of how we work together. But then there's, of course, the whole legal regulatory frame, that pillar, where we need to have laws and regulations that are supportive of and not hindering the work of civil society, again, in that wide range of functions that it plays. And then, of course, there's the dialogue piece, which is hugely important, right? We need to have the space to have dialogue, to be heard, to be able to put proposals on the table, and to be taken, to be part of the policy dialogue process in our country on a whole wide range of issues. So, excited again to be here. At CCIC, we're particularly keen to foster collaboration with academics. We're convinced that we need to ground our policy work and our programmatic work as a sector on evidence, and so we really are excited when we see academics taking interest in things that we're also interested in, or finding those points of convergence, and hoping to see more and more research and study and reflection from an academic perspective on these issues that are so important to our day-to-day work. So thank you very much for being here again. I'm really looking forward to a great day of discussion. Do I need to say something else, Co-Chair? She's on top of it, I'm not. So I need to look. Am I good? Did I want to cut everything good? Great.